What's going on, Rick?
I'm sick. I got the Rona. You know what? I know who gave it to me too. There was this couple. We just got back from Puerto Rico, and there was this old dude.
Well, you can just stop there.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Oh, Gigi's gonna be so mad at you. We went to her reunion.
It was somebody else high school. We don't have to tell how many, right? Was it the high school reunion?
Yeah, so I got the Rona, but I didn't want to cancel because this is the biggest week of the podcast.
Right. So you were totally willing to show up in a terrible mood, feeling like crap. No.
Kill the
First vibe of this podcast.
No. See, here's where you're wrong. Every week I show up in a horrible mood. I'm actually in a decent mood now. So I would roll with a decent sick Rick than a bad mood, healthy Rick.
It's fair. They have no idea how often we have to talk for 15, 20 minutes just to get you out of your funk that you're in.
I don't know. I think it's just because we record on Saturday and you know what it is too? Like I start getting in my head, my insecurities come out thanks to people like Scott Emmert who just constantly like with Miami fair weather fans. So now I have to wear Detroit, but I also have to wear Miami because I get people from Miami being like, "You live in Miami longer. I see you at the Dolphins games." So my insecurities, and then I start. This is really pulling back.
Here we
curtain,
go.
But
it's
yeah,
fun.
So I start thinking about all the conversations or messages we get during the week, and then the DMs I get about, hey, you mispronounced this word, or you used that word wrong, and I was like, oh, that's what I need.
Well, we've talked about this before.
And your sister Sandy's comment, like, what kind of meta bullshit is this?
I don't think she said bullshit. Just to be clear,
she may not have. And if she didn't, then Sandy, I apologize. But hold on. She said, "Oh, what kind of meta nonsense is this?" In my head, it was what kind of.
Well, in fairness, it was, hey, we're not doing a podcast on the podcast, so
yeah, but I don't think we're smart enough to be meta.
Fact.
All right.
You can just stop with, I don't think we're smart enough.
Yeah, there didn't have to be anything after that. Hey, all right, so this is it. This is the podcast. Now, you called me yesterday, and you started giving me rules about this podcast, and I said, wait. Well, I said, wait, tell it on the podcast. I'm like, I don't want to hear it here because I want everyone to understand the pain that I go through. So go ahead. So you called me.
So that's not fair because I've never done this for any of our podcasts for what I'm about to do, which is to ask have specific requests to just roll with it, because here's Carrie and I have a bet. Carrie thinks you're going to get up and walk out at least one point of the podcast. We'll see. And because so here's why.
Wait. I don't know if you're being serious or not. She thinks I'm literally going to get up and walk out.
Yes. And now that you got the vid, man, the Rona, I don't know. We'll see how this goes. Okay. So there's a specific reason why, and I'll let you know a little bit later when that happens. But so the whole thing is, like, I wanted to figure out how to tell this story right. We've alluded to this a couple of different times. It's a big thing. Yeah. It's like, and I dove deeper into this than I ever have in my entire life. Like trying to revisit mentally, the things I knew, the things I remembered, but like going and well, so I'll just show you. So I just started writing down all the craziness that I could think of, and all I have pages and pages and pages of stuff, right? That I just was writing down, trying to get all my thoughts, in one place. And give it some sort of structure. And this is one of the best parts. I went and got the file folder from my dad that was labeled Firecracker, which we will touch on. That's a little
That's putting it lightly. Putting it lightly.
Exactly. And it's got the little sticky on it that says, please return all, right? This is so on brand for my dad. Please return all with the date, right? The whole thing. And it's like, it's got the little punch card with the date, like from the library, that with the day. Like I'm joking. It's not really, that's a call out it's a shout out to my buddy Randall. He said that. I thought it was hilarious. But my dad, of course, he wants it back because he didn't keep it for 30 plus years just to lose it now.
But why wouldn't he digitize it? But
well, hold on. This is the file, but this is the file folder that from the experience that has all sorts. It's like the court records. It has all the hearings, all the stuff, the details. Dude, the details.
Talking about you're burying the lead when you start talking about the court.
So it's got details.
Does it have your mugshot?
It has details in here that I didn't know existed. Like so I was fascinated by that stuff. Okay.
I bet.
And, I went and did some reconnaissance. When I started thinking,
that's a word I would have screwed up and people would have called me out on it. Reconnaissance. Great word.
The recon, right? So
yeah.
When I started thinking through some of the details, I was like, man, because of what I saw in the folder, I was like, did I get that right? I was like, I gotta go drive over and make sure I had it right.
You actually drove?
I shot a video, like while I was over there to go.
Oh, that's what you want me to include in this?
No, it's not.
Oh,
it's not.
Okay.
It's not. I didn't shoot it well enough for that to matter. It was like for my own edification associated with some of the things that happened, right? And I was like, no, I did have it right. I had it right. So the short of it is, like, buckle up.
A lot of setup.
Buckle up. Grab a good drink. It's a 6-act podcast.
Go.
So don't yell at me. Listen. Okay. Ready? Here's the hook. In 1991, I was 13 years old, and some delinquent boy behavior one night changed the rest of my life. It's a defining moment, if there ever was one. And it is the living embodiment of the quote, bad decisions make for good stories.
Are you going to set up what type of person you were before going into this and afterwards?
No, I like it.
Okay, so then let me do that.
I think that could be
because here's the thing.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah. So the thing is you, especially with how strict your parents were and you were the kind of model, still are the model family. Like when you think of like the Rockwell family, is that right? Is it the Rockwell, you know, the old drawings? Is it Rockwell? Someone chime in and correct me so that I can have anxiety. Yeah, Norman Rockwell.
Sure, buddy.
Okay. All right. Well, you guys were the kind of picture perfect family where like you guys were all athletic, great grades, you went to church every week, never stepped out of line. Everyone, like your dad would run through the neighborhood and pick up trash if there was any. He would have a whole bag, like perfect family. So you were perfect. You couldn't go to parties. Like I would go to parties with friends, stuff. You couldn't do that. So really strict. And you did one thing wrong. And the other thing that I'll say, like you said, it's 1991, so there's no cell phones or anything. If there were, growing up, we would have been screwed. But go ahead. All right. So take us back 1991. It was a fall day.
All right. Hold on. No, it was all right, hold on. How does the story start? It starts with Act 1, the play. So it's 1991. The year a little known band, Nirvana, changed the world with an album called Nevermind. Wink! So good.
This is where I have to roll with it.
Yes, this is where you have to roll with it. I know where you're at. Shut up. It Smells Like Teen Spirit, In Bloom, Come As You Are. Just relax, okay, Mister. It was a thing. Okay, my 8th grade speech and drama class was responsible for the hottest ticket in town for a play in a cafeterium in a middle school. Yeah.
Are you saying that right? Or
yeah, the cafeterium.
This is gonna take forever. If I stop you like this, but is it called?
Yeah, then why are you doing that? It's not a real thing. It's a joking term that people use for the cafeteria auditorium where there's a stage in the cafeteria.
Huh. All right, I'm gonna roll with it. Go.
So for the middle school play on a Tuesday night, right? Hottest ticket in town. And this is back when I had, lots of hair, a little bit of ability to act, and nothing to lose. So I got cast as the lead, as Dracula, in the play Seven Wives for Dracula. Okay. And you're looking at the immortal man himself. I'm sure there's some sort of a Highlander reference in there somewhere.
Give me a line from the play.
Oh God, I couldn't even do that. I didn't get that far. I couldn't do that. But in the play, any considerable thespian production is going to have the part of the bat that Dracula transforms into, right? So that's my counterpart for within the play. Okay.
And this is, wait, we're sorry to interrupt, but we're coming on to a point that I think you and I both have to figure out how we're delicately
I know how we're going to do it. Yep.
Well, okay. But just pulling it back, we don't want to name names,
right?
Because of what this has done to other people.
Correct.
But go ahead. All right.
Correct.
So, now I'm intrigued. I want to see how you do it.
So my counterpart was played by another classmate, in the drama class, right? And so to keep names out, as Rick just alluded to, we're going to call him the Bat. Okay, that's his name for this story. So this kid, the Bat, was an artistic kid, and he clearly did not care about trying to fit into the social norms, right? At the time, and this is my take, right? All this is my take on the whole situation. And if you had asked me,
I was going to say my take, that dude was awesome.
Okay, cool. So
I hung out with him, and I was jealous of his artistic ability.
Agreed. Super artistic, crazy artistic. But if you had asked me back in the year of Nevermind that what if I thought what I would have thought of him, I would have said he was a weird dude. I would have said it was a weird dude, and very different, right? Okay. Now that said, he put on a fantastic performance as the Bat, right? Yeah. And so during the show, he full costume and would, run and jump around on stage, and he was flying, right? And the thing that stuck, that's forever seared into my brain, was the sound that he made as he was flapping his wings around the stage that went like this. He literally made this sound, right, while he was whatever. So he was great. It's fantastic, right? In that regard. So on this particular day, we were in class.
You get like me, where when you get excited, you talk fast.
Of course, this is not new. We know this.
I know, and to keep this within 4 hours is probably better. So audience, keep up.
Yeah, so keep talking. That'll help the time frame.
Well, I was going to tell you to slow down, but I like it.
I do. You can tell me to slow down here or there. So on this particular day in class / rehearsal, right? We are sitting around one of the lunch tables. It's all the boys in the class sitting around one of the lunch tables, right? And so if a table full of 13 and 14-year-old boys don't already throw some sort of red flag, you're probably too young to be listening to this podcast, to begin with. But the Bat started to tell us that he was trying to convince the drama teacher to allow him to bring flash bombs into the production, so that when Dracula went off stage, then a flash bomb would go off in the wings, so you could see a light, and then the Bat would come out onto stage, right?
If someone said that today,
I know,
do you know how many red flags would go off? But keep in mind, this was 91.
Yes, absolutely. So we're sitting around this table, and he's telling the story about how he's trying to convince the drama teacher, to allow that. But then he continues to tell us a story about how he has this book at home that has taught him how to make all sorts of explosives. And so, those conversations quickly turned into these mind-bending stories for me about glorious successes with blowing up people's mailboxes in wherever he lived. I don't know where.
He actually did that?
Yes. So
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Well,
okay.
So that's what he told us all, and that's the whole scenario, right? And so,
and by the way, We may have to just keep putting a disclaimer up here.
Yeah.
Because some of our high school friends listen to this, do not name any names. Do not put it in the comments or anything.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to delete them. We'll have to delete them and remove them. We're trying to be very, yes.
Yeah. And he's successful, this guy now, right? Like,
I believe so. Yes.
We don't even have to get into that. But, so don't, if you name anything, if you're dying to know, just DM us or something.
Yeah. And just please don't. We're being very, conscientious, right, of trying to protect people's, in the story across the board, right, and so you'll see that. So because this is my
it's
take.
Yours.
It's my situation.
And I also don't think any of these people really would have a problem with it. We just didn't ask them, so we don't want to assume that they have no problem with it.
No, I would never assume any. I would never assume it.
Right.
So
okay.
so
to the explosions.
So he's telling us these stories about blown up mailboxes, and this is my first mistake. Right, the first mistake was I instantly thought of the situation where I wanted to exact revenge on the neighborhood monster who was Crazy George. So
it's
instantly.
So interesting to tell because I'm probably Crazy George now. What makes Crazy George Crazy George?
Yes, this is where I'm going with it. So 100%. So Crazy George is like the I don't know if quintessential is the word, but he is the perfect like 90s cinema bad guy, right? That like that and the reason he was the bad guy was because when we were kids, when we were this age, us Gen Xers used to play tackle football with no pads and like as friends, right? The friends getting together and playing together. And as part of that, depending on who was playing, there was always this constant analysis of which yard were we going to play in, and would get us the idiot brains together to figure out where was the best place to play, depending on all the factors, right? You need enough room to be able to play football and ideally not have, permanent blockers, AKA trees, in the space, so you guys could play and whatever. And often, and I think it was somewhat logistics, whatever, often we ended up in our friend's front yard, and our friend's name is Howner, right? We called him Howner because he had the ability to make this ungodly, otherworldly sound out of his throat, this throaty sound out his mouth hole. That was the weirdest thing you'd ever heard. That you just like, Howner, make the sound. He'd do it. It was fantastic. I'm not even going to attempt. I'm not even going to try. So it was Howner's front yard that we were often playing. Right next to Howner's house was Crazy George. And Crazy George, his mission in life was to sit on his chair at the line of his garage into the driveway and watch us to make sure we literally didn't step a single foot into his yard. And if we did, which as you can imagine, when you're kids and you're even knowing and trying to be conscious was just impossible for an accidental missed pass, right? That, whatever. And it accidentally went into Crazy George's yard. And we always knew as soon as somebody had to step foot into his yard that Crazy George
ball or
stood
whatever,
up.
yeah.
Yep. Get the ball. Exactly. Stood up, shuffled across the front lawn. Old dude. Like I don't know. Looking back, I think he was
50.
probably no. Shut up. I think he had to have been 70 years old, 75. 80. I don't know. Like pretty old and frail. And he would shuffle across the front yard, slowly come across the front yard wherever we were playing, wherever, and just continue to give us a verbal lashing about how we.
I don't remember one verbal lashing he ever gave. I remember him sitting there. I remember not wanting to go on his lawn and stuff. I don't remember any verbal lashing.
Oh yeah, no, it happened, and unquestionably it happened regularly, right? And then when there was one point where one of the kids that we were playing with gave him some choice words back from the verbal lashing that we were getting. So that kid, literally, when that kid was like, because of the verbal lashing that was taking place, and that kid like chirped back at him, Crazy George tried to start a fight with him. He physically started trying to swing at the kid. Were you there? You clearly weren't there for that day. If you don't remember that, you must have. Yeah, 100%. Not making this up. Crazy George, and then by the way, when Crazy George needed to take a break, do you remember this? That he would have his devil spawn wife Edna watch from the window upstairs. So
Funny how you're using George and Edna's name.
Yeah,
there's no way they're alive.
They're not going
right?
to be alive. Agreed. That's where I'm at. So, and regardless, nobody knows where this is at. So, but she used to stand in the window and watch us when George needed a break. And anytime, again, there was a domestic grass disturbance that took place, she told him about it, and he came right back out and started yelling at us again. Like, to, you know, literal get off my lawn, you know, type crap. So Crazy George was mean, out of control. And if I played my cards right, then his next project was going to be replacing what tiny fragments were left of his mailbox. And that leads us into Act 2, which is the plan. All right, so for Operation Fragments to be a successful mission, okay, then we need to first get a hold of said devices, right, from the bat. So I asked him for one, and then I asked him for one of an explosive device to be able to blow up a mailbox. Okay. So so a few days later at school, can you even imagine nowadays? So at school, he's like, hey, I got, you know, oh, okay. So he like meets me over at my locker, and to my surprise, he actually brought 3. And I was like, oh, and thinking back on it, I guarantee you it was the shadiest looking situation you could possibly imagine. Like 2 kids with a bag that's open that are like looking around all nervous about like, you know, like some sort of handoff or blocking, you know, standing near the locker so people can't see, you know, stuff that's going on.
Just any teacher that saw that would have been like, oh, they're up to no good.
100%, 1000%. If a teacher saw that, would have spotted it from a mile away. So the other thing that surprised me was what they looked like, which, you know, they were sort of like a cartoon kind of bomb that you would imagine, like with like a circle and then like a wick jetting out of the top. Side. Yeah, with like a wick jetting out of the top or whatever. But they were about the size of a large orange, and but they were white because they were plaster. They were made of plaster on the outside. Things were plastered, and they were all different shapes. Like they weren't all exactly the same. They were all a little different or elongated or, you know, whatever. And really rough from the plaster and the texture and like the, you know, the materials that he used. But I didn't know what they were going to look like. That was never discussed, but it definitely wasn't this. Like, you know, when I saw him, it was very, very handmade, right? Like on every level.
What's interesting is you and I hung out all the time, so much so that we were called the Bopsy twins,
right?
Because everyone saw us together. I don't know that I ever saw these. I had to.
No, you didn't, and I'll tell you why. I know you didn't.
Okay.
So I smuggled them home, right? So I got them in my locker, I got them in my backpack. You know, end of the day, smuggled them home, got them home, and when I got home, I had that panic moment. I hadn't thought that through of like, where am I going to hide these things? Like, that so nobody's going to find them. I'm not going to get in trouble. And I kind of, you know, looked at them. I'm like, well, they're white. And I'm like, oh, my socks are white. I literally put them in some of my socks and then like rolled it up so it looked like some rolled up socks and put them in my sock drawer. Okay, is where it's where they went. And so now I've got them hid. And the next part of the plan is safety. Because, you know, I'm dumb, but I'm not stupid. So I tried to like think my way through of like, what sort of things could I need or should I be using if I'm trying to blow up a mailbox? And my thought process led me to safety glasses and gloves. Are the things that I had access to and that I could bring, you know, as part of this. And
which plays a big role. We'll get into, but does. Most kids are especially at 13, are not thinking like that.
Probably not. But that's kind of, you know, I was a prepared kid, right? I wanted to be, and you know, where I could. And I'm going to send you a picture of the goggles that I went and found on eBay. It's like the most 90s thing you've ever seen in your life. They're these bubble goggles. They're like one piece bubble goggles like that wrap around your eyes. And so it was those that I brought, and I'm pretty sure it was my mom's gardening gloves that are the ones that whatever I had access to, I didn't have my own. So now I need to figure out the who and the when, right? So the who was like, who's coming with me to do this? And the when was, when are we going to go out and get that done? So of course, my first choice as part of the Bobbsey twins, my partner in crime, literally, in this instance, was going to be my co-host, Mr. Rick Sikowski. But Mr. Sikowski was unable that evening to participate. Wow. And why was that, Rick? Here's your time to shine.
Okay. So I've done so much wrong in my life. I was not a good kid. And no, I mean, I wasn't bad, but like, it was like mischievous stuff. And my mom would always threaten to ground me, and she never did, which as a parent, I now know if you don't actually enforce the rules, they're just going to take it one step further. One time she grounded me and it stuck. She's like, nope, you're staying inside. And it was this night, the one time that Diane told me that you are not allowed to go out, was this night.
That night. And so you're not part of the story the way that
so this is where I exit.
The way that others are. And so my next choice was another friend that lived down the street, and I called him up, and we're gonna call him the friend. Okay.
Oh,
and so
call unoriginal.
It's gonna work. Don't worry about it. I'm the one that's gotta not use the name. So relax.
Yeah.
Settle down.
He was a good friend too. So it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard for one of us not to say it.
Very good friend. And so. So call up the friend, and he was like, my parents said I can't leave until I finish my homework. So I literally went over there and helped him finish his homework, worked on it with him. And the story was that we were going to go out and go jogging, which, sounds kind of ridiculous, and it is sort of really ridiculous, but right. But not really, then. Because
we did stuff like that.
We played sports. We did stuff like that. We had like physical fitness competitions at school and stuff.
The crazier part of this story is that your friend was doing homework.
Well, I finished it for him, so we could go out. So we got it done, and then I helped him with the homework, and then we could commence Operation Fragments, right? And so we've got the safety gear, we got some matches, we got the revenge device.
You took 2 pair of goggles?
No, I only had one.
Oh, okay.
I only had one pair at home.
Got it.
And so one pair that was like hanging on the wall that weren't my dad's. Sure. You know what I mean? Sure. Like I didn't want to take some of my dad's that he would know was gone or missing, or, he's always working on stuff and he might need, or whatever the case was. So we got our safety gear, got some matches, got our revenge device. We're making our way down to the mailbox, down to Crazy George's mailbox. Right. And we get down there, and like, as quick as you can power shift from first gear to second, right? We realized it was going to be quite difficult to actually rearrange Crazy George's mailbox, because cars kept coming, because it was actually a pretty heavy thoroughfare, like in the subdivision that connected the whole sub to the main road, that was close by, or whatever, the whole thing.
But you're making it sound like there's constantly cars.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's not constant.
Yeah, if you see 1 or 2 cars every 10 minutes.
No. I'm telling you.
You think it's more than that?
Well, in this night it was. So I don't know what was playing at the local cinema, but there were cars, like when every time we tried to get in front of the mailbox to try and start to figure out and assess the situation, a car would come from one way or the other. People coming home, somebody leaving, whatever that is. And then, you could see, it was nighttime, so you could see them coming. That's a straight street, right? For a long ways. So you could see them coming from a long ways. And this was the problem. every time we tried to assess the situation and we had to go hide, because we're not going to just stand there at the mailbox.
Right.
We had to go run and hide, and there was no place near Crazy George's mailbox to hide. So anytime a car started to come, we had to go run to the yard next door to where there was a large tree in the front yard, and then go hide behind the tree. Okay.
Wait, what time at night was this?
It was probably, it was
9-ish?
dark. It was definitely dark. Yeah. No, I would say 9-ish. So every time a car came, we had to go hide behind the tree of the yard next door. And then, so as any good military strategist is going to do, you change your plan. And so because we couldn't get back over there in time to figure stuff out before another car came or whatever, we got to switch it to the nearest mailbox. And so now we're trying to blow up Hounder's mailbox.
Are you serious?
Yes. It
I
was
did not know
actually,
that.
yeah, see, here we go. So it was actually Hounder's mailbox that, because it was closest to the tree that we could hide behind.
Does he know that?
I don't know.
Hounder, if you're listening.
That's what I wanted to say was it was nothing personal. It was purely logistical at that point, right? About trying to.
In fairness, if you were closest to my house, you would have blown up mine.
Absolutely. But it was like one of those things that in the moment, logistics outweighed the revenge, right? Like it was out the window so we could try and execute this thing. And so Hounder's mailbox, by the way, was already smashed and damaged, right?
Sure.
It wasn't a nice mail, and it was a small one. And that's the thing is so we're out there and we're in front of this mailbox, and until you've got two people sitting in front of a mailbox with a little door open, and you got four hands in there trying to figure out what you're going to do, you don't realize how small mailboxes, at least back then, really are. They're smaller than the collection of books you and I have collectively read in our entire lifetimes. Small. Right?
Yeah, one.
Yeah, exactly. So we're sitting there, we're trying to figure out some of the logistics, and we figure out he's going to stand on the left and I'm going to stand on the right. And we decide and figure out that he's going to light it and I'm going to hold it. And I'm going to hold it and then throw it and shove it and close the door. Okay. And so, so because that's what we're going to do, in my head, I went, okay, if you're going to light it, I'm going to give you the goggles. Right? You take the safety goggles. I'll keep the gloves because I'm going to hold it and I'm going to throw it. And the instructions that I had received from the bat in terms of lighting this was that the devices that for the wick that came up and out, the wick was wrapped in aluminum foil. And he had said that you need to peel back some of the aluminum foil and you're going to light it there. Okay. And so I remember there at night in the dark, peeling some of that away and when you're crushing tin foil, but I don't know, it was crushing little metal mountains and trying to fold it around and futz with it in the middle of the night. But we ended up getting about an inch of the wick exposed, and then the rest was the tin foil before it went down to the explosive, right?
Okay.
And after a comical amount of attempts of lighting matches that didn't stay lit, or when you try to get it down there, it blew out, or we started one but a car started coming, we're we can't light it and throw it, and then the car's next to it and whatever, the whole thing. After a comical amount of attempts, it lit. And that takes us to Act 3, which is the boom. The bomb went off instantly, right? So right there, right then. And thank the universe for natural ability or wrestling or whatever that is, but I have very fast reflexes. And when I saw it light, I ripped my hand out of there. I was holding it in my right hand, and I ripped my hand out of there just fast enough and far enough away that when the bomb went off and hit us, my hand, it was not in my hand.
Well, explain that. So, I mean, you explain what the bomb looks like. It's the size of a large orange.
Yeah.
But it's just filled with
Well, I didn't know what it was filled with. He
Yeah.
didn't tell me, and we didn't talk about it. Right. So, and so this is kind of part of the thing is like, so why did it go off instantly? Well, what I didn't know was that in the tinfoil that had lined the wick, that he had lined the tinfoil with gunpowder. So there was gunpowder all the way up inside the tinfoil, up the wick. And so anyone that has any experience with gunpowder knows that when you light it, it goes. And so I saw a flash enough of something light at the gunpowder in the wick that I could get my hand out of there, that I got my hand out of there fast enough, and it just, boom, went off, right? And so it's an understatement to say that this was like ear-splittingly loud, right? And
Yeah, you were at what, 100 yards from my house?
Probably more, probably
Maybe
a little
150
more.
yards.
Yeah.
I mean, it's to the point where I heard it at my house.
Yeah. I was told by many they heard it the next day.
Now, I didn't know what it was.
Right.
Because I didn't know you guys were doing that.
Yeah,
right.
Correct. You didn't know we were right. You were out. Right. And so
I was grounded. Thanks, Mom.
That should be a true thanks, Diane.
No. Thank you, Diane.
See, there you go. But man, like that sound, I felt like the world had like compressed all of the sound vibration molecules available on the entire planet and stored them up just to deliver the surprise from Mr. Boom Boom directly into my ear canals. And and I was totally disoriented, and I remember stumbling into the yard, that the one with the hiding tree in it. I stumbled into the yard, and I knelt down in the yard on one knee, and the world disappeared. The first thing I remember registering was like a deafening ringing in my ears. That's
you hear in the movies.
Like the first recall. Yeah, I mean, but it was like the world was gone. That's all that there was. Yeah. And then the world continued to be gone because I was blind. I couldn't see anything. And kneeling down, I like put my head in my gloved hands, right, and sat there for a couple of seconds. And the entire time, all I could think was, "Oh my God, I've destroyed my eyes. Like I'm blind now." Like I just kind of like kept going like, "Oh my God, I've destroyed my eyes. I'm blind now." And it felt like an eternity. It was probably 5, 10, 15 seconds in reality, that I decided I needed to try and figure out what was going on. And so I took my gloves off while I was still kneeling down, and I like felt my face to figure out, like in my head, I was like, "Oh my God," like are my eyeballs like gone? Like, are they like hanging out of my face at this point? And I felt my face, and everything felt like it was there. Right. It felt okay. It felt like it was there. And then my eyes were closed, and then I opened up my eyes, and still black. Right. And I was like, "Oh my God, what is going on? Like, what happened?" And I remember just kind of staring blankly into the distance while I was knelt down there. And there was this pinhole of light that like appeared in my vision. And then the pinhole of light like slowly got a little bit larger and a little bit larger and a little bit larger. And it got large enough that I realized that I was looking at the porch light of the house that was in the yard, that I was kneeling down in. And then my vision kept coming back and came back fully, for seeing at night. And best I can figure, it was that the explosion itself was so bright that my pupils just collapsed down to at least small enough that nothing you're going to see in the night, right? By the moonlight. And so as my vision's coming back, the ringing is starting to subside. And now my brain is taking over with a brand new sound that was equally disturbing, which was the friend screaming, "I'm blind." He's like, "I'm blind, I'm blind." And so I kind of gather myself and I stand up and I see him. He's kind of like back behind me to my left. And I go run over to him and he's kind of like literally like flailing, and yelling, "I'm blind." And I can see him and I kind of grab his shoulders and I can see him and he's got the goggles on his face and the goggles are black. And from the explosion they had hit, and I was like, friend, the goggles are still on, and so he rips the goggles off. What are you laughing about?
You're calling, hey friend.
I know. It's to change the name. I know, change the name. So he rips the goggles off, and he can see that he can see, and we collectively look at one another and we both know we've got to run, right? You can just tell we both know we've got to run.
Yeah. Okay.
And at that moment I just went, the woods. And right next to the yard that we are in, there was like kind of an unofficial pathway that went back to the woods.
That's pretty official. That's how I got to work every day.
Not official. Just a dirt pathway that kids and people used to get into the woods. And the woods was behind a large, large section, that woods behind, of the subdivision. And so we took off running down the path in the night, lit by nothing but the moonlight, right? Like as we're running into the woods. As we start running down the pathway, we don't get too far, and the friend starts like panicking and yelling while we're running, and he's like, my balls. He's like, I think I blew my balls off. He's just like, and so it got to the point because he was like really upset, right? But with the whole thing, that I turned around and I stopped him, and I literally remember grabbing his shoulder. I turned around because I was in front of him. I turned around facing back toward where we were, and grabbed his shoulders, and I was like, friend, check if you're okay. Right. So right then and there, he drops trow, right? Yep. And underwear is still on.
Hold on.
Down.
My headphones just went out again because I shook my head.
Oh, this is fantastic. You need some new headphones, man. This is going to destroy our podcast.
Go ahead. I won't shake my head now. I can't touch it. Shake my head. I'm just going to sit straight. We're good. Go ahead. So he drops trow. I didn't know he dropped his pants. Drops trow
and does an assessment, right? And the double danglers are still there. Everything's good, right? That he figured out. But however, a piece of the shrapnel had hit him in his groin, like right below the family jewels. And it had hit hard enough, like through his pants, that it was bleeding, like significantly, like right there. So he did get hit, and he was bleeding. Yeah, he was hit and he was bleeding, but he but he figured that out. And I was like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I think I'm okay. I think I'm okay." And so he pulls his pants up and we keep running, right? And so we get, a ways down the path, away from, everything that happened. And we figure out, like, we've got to do an assessment here. We got to figure out, right? So we stopped running, and even in the moonlight, I can see on the friend's face the outline of the goggles, right? Like because his face is dark, right? And I can see, yes. And I can see where the goggles were. And, and I was like, we've got to get cleaned up. And so we were, so we were actually, we were actually really close at that point where the pathway ran. It was like ran parallel to a really small creek that ran through the woods there. And so I was like, let's clean up in the creek. So we go over there, and some of the water that's running through there, we're scrubbing, right, as hard as we can, our hands, our arms, our faces. We're trying to remove any evidence, right, associated with anything. And
meanwhile, the mailbox is still intact.
Correct, 100%.
Mission fail.
So absolutely mission fail. Mission fragments was not a success. So we know though we need something better, more than moonlight here to assess what the actual damage is, what the actual situation is, and we're really close to some backyards of another set of houses in the neighborhood. And so we take the path to go up there because we can see there's floodlights next to the garage
we
door.
don't have, I know on my mom's side, but on the other side, there's no fences or anything, right? So they're just yards. So when you're saying you're going into a yard, you didn't have to hop fences or anything, right?
No, correct. Yeah.
Right.
No,
Okay.
no fence. Yep. There were fences. I don't think were allowed. I think it was part of, I think the subdivision didn't allow fences.
Yeah,
I'm pretty positive that was part of
which is why you can quickly go into a yard in and out.
Yeah, for sure. We used to go through backyards all the time, get into each other's houses and stuff like that. Yes. Yeah. So we took another little unofficial path, right, that came out of the woods that, between and we went up to this floodlight that was right by the garage, which wasn't much higher than us at the time. So we walk up to the light and the friend is like kind of, the light's coming from here and he's here and I'm here. And I look at him and I'm like, am I all right? And he looks and he goes, yeah, I think maybe a little something, whatever, but you look all right. You look all right. And he's like, am I all right? And I'm like, Mm-hmm. And you could see, so the first thing I noticed was you could see that there were black, like, specks or shrapnel or whatever you want to call it that was embedded into his skin around where the goggles were. So
wait. Let's take a step back. So you only had one set of goggles and you let him have the goggles.
I did because I don't know, because in my head it was like the logic of he's lighting it, I'm holding it, I'll protect my hands with the gloves and he can protect his face with the
that based on with all the black shrapnel and
yes,
you think you'd be blind without those?
I think there would have been major problems. I can't say for sure, but the fact that he caught the majority of the shrapnel, like from the way it was being held and however this thing went off, he definitely caught it. I didn't have pieces and parts that hit me that made me bleed, and he definitely caught a lot of it. So I think it saved his eyes. The short answer to that, I do think it saved his eyes.
And this is a weeknight, by the way.
It is Thursday night. Yeah, I didn't say that. You're right. It was it was April 18th. Actually, I know that from the file folder. I don't remember it. I was gonna make some kind of joke like every April 18th I light a firecracker, but it was in the file folder that I figure out the date and see it was a Thursday night.
Which, by the way, now hearing your dad write it on top of their firecracker, it's a little bit more than a firecracker. But we're not even halfway through the story because it gets far worse coming up.
Yes, it sure does. Let's just address the firecracker thing. Which was he was trying to make sure that we were using something that seemed like less of a scenario once we went into the legality of this all. So we'll
get to that. But
yes, we'll get to that.
He was politicking.
Yes, he was. So I see the black specks embedded into his face, right? That are they're burned in. This isn't like we're gonna clean it off. They're embedded into his face. And then the second thing that I notice, and this is like the most notable altered feature, right, from his typically calculated attempt at swag. It was that his baseball hat that he was wearing, the brim was sitting really high and his hair was singed all the way back to where the brim of his hat was. Right. And I could see it from there. And I went, your hair is, I could smell it. That burnt hair smell. I could smell it because we were that close. And I was trying to figure out, I was like, I can see your hair's singed back or whatever whole thing. And with taking off his hat and one swipe of his face, his front of his hair was gone. Gosh. And I think maybe some eyebrows too, I'm not but it was gone. Right. And I was like,
hey, friend.
I was like, Man, I don't know. Like like your hair is singed back, man. It's gone. It's gone. And he's like, well, I'll just wear my hat low. So he grabs his hat and he like pulls it way down, right? And he's like, I'll just wear my hat low. Nobody will know. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Nobody will know. And and I was like, okay. So you're okay. I'm okay. You're okay. Yeah. We're fine. We're fine. And so we decided to start walking home, right? Like we're just gonna like walk away, walk home, be done with everything for the night, right? So we get about a third of the way. At that point, we're not too far from his house, from the friend's house, and we're about a third of the way into that walk back, slow walk back, and he starts freaking out. He starts realizing. Speculation, but I think he starts realizing, like, I'm not gonna be able to get away with this. There's no way.
And I don't know. This is speculation. I wasn't even there, but like he probably was in shock, and now he's starting to feel pain.
Sure,
right,
all that.
And the gravity of the situation.
Sure, all that. Right, all that.
Hey, friend, settle down.
So he's getting super emotional. He's starting to cry. He's getting upset about the whole thing. And he's like, there's no way I'm going to, whatever the whole thing. And this was the second biggest mistake of this story here was I turned to him and I stopped and I looked and I said, I did the thing all 13-year-old boys would do in that moment to try and get themselves out of trouble. Right. And I turned to him and I looked at him and I said, we have to lie. And that takes us into Act 4, which is the lie.
This may be my favorite part because this kicks off the rest of this, basically your life. You could have gotten away with this. You could have at least...
Don't give any spoilers yet.
No, yeah. Okay, I'm just going to let you... Maybe we need to revisit this because... If you didn't say, let's lie, there's a world where it's just a dumb evening.
Yes, I agree. 100%.
But
I agree with you 100%. That's why this is the second biggest mistake of the situation. I agree with your
What's
assessment.
The first?
Completely.
Just doing it?
It was instantly coming up with the idea of revenge to blow up Crazy George's mailbox.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of mistakes along the way.
Of course.
Right. But yeah. But that's the thing too. It's like, well, I mean, I don't want to get us off track, but we were never like the revenge type or anything.
No.
Like I said I was a bad kid earlier, but we never did destruction or anything.
No. Agreed.
Right.
No.
All right.
No.
So go on.
No.
By the way, I'm Team George now that I'm older. Kids do not need to be going on lawns. They just don't.
You are Team George. You got a fence as high as you can make it.
No, I'll say this: my kids' ball goes in their yards and stuff. And if we had a neighbor like that, I can't even imagine having neighbors like that. All right, go on. The lie. This is where it gets good.
Okay, the lie. Okay, so all right. I'm gonna open with. I'll open with a quote. It's a quote from Winston Churchill where he says,
"That seems applicable here."
Right,
applicable.
Yeah, he says, applicable.
Applicable.
Yes.
See, this is this is where I get in my head. Now I'm going to go on. Just go on. I'm not going to say anything anymore. Go.
You can. So a quote. As I was preparing for this, I found a quote from Winston Churchill that I felt helped give an idea of this particular act. And the quote is, a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to get its pants on. Okay.
Yeah. That's a famous quote.
Yeah. So to me, and I knew this at the time, that the lie is all about the details, right? I literally said, as soon as I got into this headspace of like, we're gonna lie. So I know this, right? And so I tell the friend, I'm like, listen, if we're gonna lie, we've got to know the story. We have to have our story straight. And so I start going like, okay, we concocted the best thing we could think of at the time in the moment, and I was like, okay, we're out for our jog, and somebody and a white Jeep is driving by and throws something out the window at us, right? And they throw something in the window at us, and it blew up right in our face. And
so your lie is that a white Jeep
Yes.
throws a bomb out the window.
Yes.
I mean, because you do have to account for the singed hair, the welts all over his face,
correct,
the blood in the
Yes.
legs, and the
Yes.
fact that you were fine, right? Like, you didn't have any.
No,
right, so,
a little
so you
bit.
had to
I think there was a
account
little
for-
piece that like hit my face, a little bit of red, but nothing like nothing to write home about.
Got it.
So I literally reviewed with him like where we were at on the street, the direction the car was going and we were going, and like whatever. Like I went through all this stuff, right? And I was like, so okay, we went through all the things, we agreed, it's this. So
and one thing though, you're saying this so that you guys don't get in trouble from your friend's parents, right? Because he's freaking out.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to be able to. We have to your point, we have to be able to explain what's happened to us, right?
To your parents.
To our parents, right? Yes.
Right.
So because we're not gonna get away with it,
right?
Like
right.
that whole thing, and we don't want to admit to what we did, right? So
of course.
So we recollect the friends, okay, and we've continue the journey back home. We get to the friend's house. We walk in the front door, and the dad is like walking up, like past the foyer, and he can see something's wrong, and he's like, "What's going on?" And then the waterworks just start from the friend, right? Just like, and so we start kind of telling the lie, right? We start saying what happened, and instantly the dad turns and goes to the phone and dials 911. And
probably in slow motion in your head.
I froze. I couldn't actually see him. I saw and I heard him pick up the phone. I heard him pick up the phone. I heard it dial, and I heard him saying some stuff. And in my head, I literally froze. I was terrified, and I froze. And in my head, all I was thinking in my head was, friend, say something, stop him. Like, don't say something. And I didn't say something. And next thing I know, he's giving the address to the house. And I'm like, oh my God, we are so in trouble. Simultaneously, while this is happening, the friend is the youngest of 4 siblings, and the rest of the siblings are in the house, and the older brother the oldest brother.
We love him, and he is ruthless. Like he's a tough dude, and he's one of these protective people.
100%. The oldest brother's like, what happened? We kind of recap the story, and the oldest brother runs upstairs and comes running down the stairs with a shotgun in his hand. And he's like, which way did they go? And I am absolutely terrified at this moment, right? Because in my head, I'm thinking worst case scenario. My brain is going to that like he's going to go take off and find the closest white Jeep, and some like tree hugging couple on their way home from City Slickers for the 3rd time, is going to catch some buckshot, and this situation is going to go to like death.
Was that movie out in 91?
Absolutely was.
Good reference.
So I had many to choose from, and I knew you'd like the City Slickers reference.
I love City Slickers. Eric, that made me so happy.
So I can't speak for the friend, but in that moment, I'm pretty sure a little poop came out.
I bet.
Terrified, right? With the entire situation.
Because now it's getting violent. Because you're right.
Absolutely.
The first person it could have been a light gray Jeep, and
sure, all that.
Friend's
absolutely.
older brother is
absolutely. Yeah. So collectively, people like, oh, that was a long time ago, and it was like whatever, like talked him down, so never like got in the car to go leave, or whatever, stayed in the house. And before I could blink, every municipal vehicle in the entire town is lined up now outside of that address. We've got paramedics and fire. Yeah, small town. We're, fire department, police, like you name it. Everybody was out there, right? As far as you could see.
In all honesty, like I know you say like in a blink of an eye, but how long do you think it was? In all honesty, like was it 10 minutes, 5 minutes, a minute?
No, 5. I mean,
5 minutes, everyone's there.
5, and then everything's trickling in. Not everybody.
But
like
man, I don't even know where the police department is in our neighborhood or in our city.
Well, the fire department isn't far.
I don't know.
We don't need to get into that detail. It's not far.
It doesn't matter. But so within 5 minutes, you haven't.
I don't know which
parents.
one's the first one. No, so I don't know which one showed up first. Right, paramedics could have been pretty close, and they came right away. Like whatever, the whole thing. I don't remember which one came first. And shortly after, all the emergency services, are there. My dad rolls in and shows up. Right,
rolls in because you called him.
I don't think so. I think the friend's dad called the house and told him there was a situation, and I think he came down from there. I'm not 100% positive who called. I didn't call, and I think one of them did. Either the dad
it'd be
or the mom.
Interesting to get your dad's perspective, because being a parent, and if you heard someone just threw a bomb out the window at you and it went off, like, even though it's only like a less than a minute drive down the road, it's still got to be scary.
Absolutely. Agreed. Terrifying.
All right,
and at this point it's probably 10 at night. I don't know, ish, something along those lines.
Yeah. So
dad shows up and he assesses the situation and instantly knows exactly what happened. And he gives me, cause he knows. And I'll get into that a little bit or whatever, but and he gave me some advice, and I decided not to say anything to the police. And so they're of course asking a whole bunch of questions and not saying anything. And then the police then threatened my dad and said, if he doesn't talk, we're taking him to juvie tonight. We're taking him in the car and we're taking him to juvie. And so at that point, which was really what was the motivation to try and keep me out of. And so at that point, my dad just said, tell him everything. And so then the story came out, and my next recollection is sitting in the back of the officer's car, right in the back, and filling out a report.
Wait, was friend with you?
No, separate cars.
They separated.
We got put into separate cars. Yeah, got put into separate cars to go write down what happened, whatever. So I was sitting by myself in the back of the car, by myself, not with my dad either.
And by the way, like looking back on this, you go, why did friend's dad call the cops? And it's like, because every parent would have done the same exact thing. Like, we look at it from the kid's perspective. Now that I'm older, I look at it from his perspective.
Right. Yeah. No, I get it. There are a lot of different aspects of this that now we can reflect on. And one of them, one of the big ones is coming up here in this act, actually. So I fill out the report, and in that report, I state that I received 3 of these of these explosive devices. One of which.
Wait, do you have the report that you wrote?
Yeah, I do.
So what did you say? So what does it say? Explosive devices?
It says bombs in what I wrote. It says bombs.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Mistake number 4.
Or
wherever we're at.
Yeah. So, and so I let them know that I had 3. We used 1, and and then they wanted to know where are the other 2. They're in my sock drawer in my dresser at home. And now enter the bomb squad,
of course,
and bringing this chaos of this entire situation literally into our home. So they have me go down to the house, and so I go down to the basement, which is the family room, and I'm under armed officer watch, right? Like with one of the family members is with me. It was my dad for a period of time. Some of that's coming up here. Armed officer at the bottom of the stairs, watching on guard while the bomb squad is coming to the house, which rolling up in their bomb squad SWAT vehicle, pulling their detonation container behind it, like you see in the movies. And And so while I'm downstairs and they know where it's at, we've got the Hurt Locker waddling their way up the stairs to get up to my bedroom so they can get these out of my drawer and get them into the detonation container.
You live in a house where you always have to take your shoes off too.
I'm guessing that part
they
was
did
left
not.
out.
They did not take their shoes off.
But so that
are you freaking out at this time? Like, were you just scared to death?
I was very scared, and that actually kind of leads me into the one of the most impactful moments of this entire scenario for me that stuck with me is that. So I'm down on the couch, and at this point it's like 2 a.m. Because and that's in one of the notes, like one of the reports from one of the officers, about when the bomb squad came over, to the house to get the other devices. And
wait, when you wrote out the report, did you write that you were going to blow up a mailbox?
Yeah, I wrote that. Yeah, I wrote that we tried, and it went off, and it didn't. It blew up in our face.
Sure.
And I didn't write a lot in there. It wasn't super long.
Okay.
No, it wasn't super detailed. It wasn't super long. I didn't write a lot. And so while I'm sitting down there, I'm thinking to myself like, oh my God, my life is over. Like my life as I know it is over. And I literally started having like the thoughts of, I'm a bad kid. Like I'm a bad kid now. Like I'm going to be viewed as a bad kid from everyone that I know. And like in this weird way, I mean, I was still pretty young, but in this weird way, I was like, so then like parents aren't going to let their kids like play with me anymore. Like I'm going to lose my friends, and then I'm going to end up hanging out with the other bad kids. And
I wish my mom wouldn't have let me hang out with you.
And I started, so that's mentally where I was at as part of the like freaking out, like trying to assess the situation and kind of think about it at the time, or whatever. And
your dad's calm through all this?
Yes. And that's
the other thing. Like he can, I have such a hard time saying this word, but he can compartmentalize. I can't say that, but I always love that word. Compartmentalize. He's good at that. Like he's like, he's got that switch where he's like, all right, I got to be this way at this time.
He does. And he's, and I have some of that I believe I learned from him, but he is very good in crisis mode, right? Like crisis mode. He is cool and calm and logical and methodical and like figure out, ways to deal with things and whatever that is.
Horrible joke teller though.
And he would, and yes, so through all of this, he was absolutely that. But, and this is the thing I want to get to, is while I'm laying there, he had the wherewithal at the time he literally said to me, "You're not a bad kid." Like I wasn't expressing any of that stuff. Yeah, there's all stuff that was rolling around in my head. And he took the opportunity to say to me, like, "You're not a bad kid. You made a mistake and you got caught. That doesn't make you a bad kid." And he said, all of us have done stupid stuff in our lives. And he's done things admittedly that were similar in nature, like when he was young. And he flat out said, the only difference is we didn't get caught. You got caught. You're not a bad kid.
More intelligent.
But that was incredibly impactful. And now as a parent thinking back about that, right? About like the ability to have the wherewithal of heading that off at the pass, at a situation. And instantly it changed my mindset about like where I was at and going down this path. And I was like, oh yeah, no, he's right. He's right. And the short of it, for that act, it was that I may not be a bad kid, but I do have to pay the price. And that leads us into Act 5, the price.
All right, the price.
So in the immediate, I was suspended from school.
Wait. Okay. I'm going to insert myself into your story here.
Okay.
So you were, what time did the police leave?
3 a.m.
And they didn't take you to juvie or anything, right? Obviously,
No,
they
I was
didn't.
left
Right.
in my parents' custody.
Right. So 3 a.m. The next day, you're at the bus stop.
I was at the bus stop.
Yes, because you and both there. I go to the bus. What?
You just said we can't
Oh.
cut that out. We can't use that.
You and friend, I'm just going to bleep his name, but you and friend were both at the bus stop. And I know that because I was all like, so what happened? How'd it go? How'd it go? And you're like, we can't talk about it. And it's like, but I'm dying. Tell me. I can't talk about it. And I saw hair. He wore a hat.
You just again.
I saw friend's hair. And I remember being like, what is going on? And you said, can't talk about it. So you guys carried on like it was a normal day.
So that's very interesting. And you remember us getting on the bus and going that
100% because of all I kept asking you, and you got mad at me. You're like, I said I can't talk about it.
Wow.
Because I didn't know that there was like legal aspects of it and stuff or any of that stuff.
I did not remember going back the next day. I don't remember that because I know I got suspended. So I wasn't
but how did the school know?
Well, that night after I gave the report and I gave the bat's name and I also filled in that that I knew of another kid that the bat had given one to. We'll call him McFly. I gave that he
are singing like a canary.
Yeah, I look. It was I'm telling all of it, right? So So then when they found out that it was at school, that night they went over to McFly's house and asked them. I only know this because I went back and read
who's McFly?
He's another kid. I just said he was another kid that was there that I know the bat gave.
We're calling him McFly?
Yes.
All
God,
right.
you got is that so difficult?
You just heard me say the kid's name 3 times in a row. So yeah, it's difficult for me to keep everyone in order.
So in filling out the report, I know another kid got a device, an explosive device from the bat, and we're going to call him McFly. Police went to McFly's house that night and woke people up and asked him about what had happened, and they wanted to make sure nobody was going to get injured or whatever the case was.
Gosh.
And so,
can you imagine being his parents?
So I only know this from the report. He denied it initially, and the police left, and then he turned around and they called the police and told him to come back, and they went back to the house, and then he admitted, and it was at school left in his locker. So then they have to take the services to school that night. Everybody went over to the school and they went in, and he opened up the locker and they went in and got it that night. So the school knew about it the night it happened. And that's why the next day that there was some announcement, and I got crap for this for many, many years. So there was another situation with a friend of ours that had like an actual firecracker or something like in his locker. But the next day it was like, there was like an announcement, or all the teachers had to talk about or whatever. And it was like, if you know of anything that could be dangerous to anybody, or you have to report it. And our other friend, who was like completely separate from the whole thing, and it was like, he had like some little stupid thing.
He thought it was talking about him.
like inconsequential. Somebody reported him, and he got suspended.
Oh my gosh.
Because everybody was on high alert as to what had happened, and whatever the case was. So that's how the school knew and found out about it. And man, are you sure it wasn't on Monday, that I wasn't there Sunday and then I came back on Monday? Because it doesn't matter. I got suspended.
You would have been suspended right then. I would have known. I remember going to the bus stop, and you guys you looked like you were so tired and everything. I remember how mad you got at me for keep asking for, me. I keep pressing,
sure.
Just tell me one thing. Tell me. So I remember that. So if it would have Monday, I would have spoken with you. Yeah,
that's fair.
Then.
So maybe I don't have the record of that. So maybe it was Monday, that I got suspended, from, and could you imagine by today's standards, like, you know what I mean? Like, gone, expelled instantly. So in the immediate, I was suspended from school for a day. right? And
one day?
yeah, it was only one day that I was suspended for.
Oh, okay.
I ended up, so spoiler alert, I ended up going to court for this scenario for 7 years of my life. And I'm gonna talk about it. I'm gonna break it down.
Okay.
Okay. It was so 7 years. So my parents, after the incident, immediately went and got a lawyer. And my dad doesn't remember the exact details of how that played out in terms of the recommendation or how we landed on that particular lawyer. But they went and got a lawyer, and I was, of course, grounded for like eternity, right, from them. And the initial first hearing that we had associated with this was in June of 91. So this happened in April, May, June. That was the initial hearing for the first time we went to court. So it's 2 months later, 2 months after, after the boom. And
after the boom,
and we were told by the lawyer that it really probably wasn't going to be a big deal and it should be relatively inconsequential because it was our first offense, right? And we were generally good kids, and we were likely going to go in and talk to the magistrate. This was the actual plan that was in place at that time. We were going to go in and we were going to meet with the magistrate, go into a back room, talk with the magistrate, figure out all the details, whatever, and then it'll be presented to the judge, and then that's what's going to happen, right? And turns out that because this case had some notoriety to it because it was in the paper, there were multiple situations because it had escalated beyond just my situation because the bat was involved, and the police, when they went over there, they ended up finding like over 20 devices that were already built in the space.
And keep it in mind, he wasn't a bad kid either. Like
right.
Because when you hear 20 devices, and by today's standards, you look at him as like, this guy's a monster. It wasn't that. Like you said, he wanted to do things for like the school play to make him turn into a bat and stuff. So he was very creative, and he just happened to, like, if you told me he was in Hollywood special effects right now doing explosion stuff, I'd be like 100%.
That makes sense. Right. So turns out, because this case had some notoriety and it was in the paper in multiple.
Do you think being in a small town had some effect on it being in the paper?
Yes.
Yeah, because not much happens. Like, what else are you writing about?
Right. Yes.
Do you have any of those newspapers?
Like this one right here? So I'm getting to that. So
God bless your dad.
That one's me. This one's been in my files for 30 plus years.
You're 100% reading it on this podcast.
That's fine. I already scanned it. I'm going to send you some stuff about, here that you can pull up or show or whatever. If we feel like we want to insert that, but so let's see. So because this case had some notoriety, the judge went in and pulled the file from the magistrate, and coincidentally, it happened to be a re-election year. And that's a elected position. And so this had some notoriety. And I was told that there was some synergies there in that situation or scenario.
To show that he was tough on crime?
Everything escalated very quickly and so our first hearing of going in, so it was actually the four of us. So it was the bat, me and the friend, and McFly. And I'll just say it's the only time in my life I ever recall sweat dripping off the palms of my hands because I was so nervous. And I was standing up next to the lawyer with my hands behind my back. And I can literally remember feeling sweat dripping off as I was shaking in front, because the judge took the opportunity to really lay into the tough on crime scenario and was yelling at us from the bench. And when you're a kid and you're thinking like, I could literally go to juvie, for this, it was absolutely terrifying. It worked, right? I mean, you were
scared straight.
Yeah, absolutely. And and even like, so there was this moment where McFly, like, cause he was asking us what happened, what we did, what the scenario was. He was looking for information, and McFly started telling his side of the story and, or, his situation. And he used the word cops instead of police officer. And he said cops, which I didn't know until that moment is actually a derogatory term. Like for police officers.
I'm finding out about that right now.
Right. So I didn't know that in the moment. I don't ask, don't know. Didn't research that. But trust me. So the judge stopped him in his tracks and said, "The what?" He yelled at him, and he was like, the cops came over to the house, and he was like, "The what?" And he literally like stood up out of his seat, like to.
This is all theatrics then, right?
I mean, yes, because he wants to make sure you are showing the ultimate respect for the entire scenario, and cops being a derogatory term instead of police officer was something that he's going to lean into. But sure, I mean, it doesn't matter when you're 13 years old.
No, of course it doesn't.
For sure or not.
But why are you screaming at 13-year-olds who are showing I mean, I can vouch for but the four of you guys were not types that would disrespect elders, disrespect law enforcement stuff. So there had to have been some theatrics there just for.
I don't disagree.
This is how hard I am on crime.
I don't disagree with you. I remember my lawyer nudging me. Like I was standing next to him. I remember him nudging me and going like, relax, it's okay. Like, relax. Like he knew what was going on. Yeah. I didn't know. Yeah. I didn't know what was going on, in that moment. But so it escalated like crazy fast. And from that first hearing is when things got split up. So the bat was his own situation because of what was going on. And he made it, and there were more and whatever. Got separated.
Were they trying to get you to testify against each other?
I don't know that. I mean, we had already given the details. I don't think there was more, no, we didn't have to come in and testify. Got it. Everything was an open book conversationally at that point.
Yeah.
We weren't, we weren't hiding stuff or whatever. So they split off the bat, and then the friend and I were grouped together, and then McFly also got split off. Right. And so he didn't try and use anything or anything like that. So his was the least of the, the scenarios, and however that got taken care of. Right. Relatively inconsequential. And so one of the things I learned very quickly is that the legal system, at least back then, was incredibly inefficient. It was an unbelievably inefficient process. And like we would, so kind of to your point, when we would show up, we would pull me out of school, pull the family out of school. We'd all get dressed up, nicely to go show up and be respectful. And then you'd have to wait, because now we're in the public courtroom. And so you go in hours ahead of time to sit and wait until your time comes, right? Until your case comes up in what the judge is dealing with or whatever. And then all of a sudden, so you get there and you do all that stuff, and you get there, and all of a sudden it's canceled. Like all of a sudden, like someone's got, for like no reason, your case, oh no, we got to reschedule that. And then, because like the bailiff's dog had a ingrown nail that needed to be dealt with or something, you had no idea.
Why were you going, like, I don't understand the process, so forgive me on this, but so you're going there to find out if you're guilty or not? Didn't you guys plead guilty?
We didn't at that point. So meaning we did not. So this was the exploration of the case and the charges and what that meant, and like all that kind of stuff. And the prosecuting attorney, right? Like figuring out what they are charging me with and trying to be, whatever. It's like, I don't know all the details because I was 13 and even going through the files here, like wasn't clear to me. But things would get canceled on a regular basis, and they have to get rescheduled. And every time we showed up, we still had to pay the fee for the court and all that kind of stuff. So that process ended up taking 3 months, right? So which in my head, it was interesting to actually go back and see some of these dates, because in my head, I always just held on to, I went to court for 7 years, but it was actually like September 2nd that I was released to the custody of my parents, like officially, through the court. And I was on, I forget the name of it. I had to look at it, but I was released.
When you say release, what does that mean? You weren't getting held
because
somewhere.
I wasn't held somewhere, but I was placed in the parents' custody, right? Is what the reference was. And I had, and was given 1 month of home detention. I was not allowed, like ankle bracelet without the ankle bracelet. But I was not allowed to go anywhere without my parents taking me. And that was only to school, job, or church.
Yeah,
right,
but that's basically your life anyways.
so one step back before is the other thing that other than the incredibly inefficient process that I want to make mention was it became really obvious that you have to play the game when you're in the system. When you're in their house, you have to play their game. And that means showing up with a competent lawyer, right? And doing all the things to give the full respect. And, it's like, if you try and go up against the law, you're going to lose every time. They're supporting each other. Like, and within the system, in every single way. I don't know. It's just something that became like, so that sounds obvious as an adult. When you're 13 years old, you don't know that kind of stuff. You don't really know it until you see it and you experience it. But we ended up pleading guilty to 2 counts, and it was like intent to use and possession, right? Type thing. And which were felonies.
Felonies because it's a government mailbox.
So I don't know all the details. I don't know if it would have been a felony had it not been a mailbox. I just know they were felonies and a mailbox was involved. So I'm not 100%, what it was. I just know that there were 2 felony counts that were on my record coming out of this. And yes, I believe it to be the mailbox, but I don't know that it wouldn't have been a felony with having a explosive device at school or public school space, whatever. So I got sentenced to 40 hours of community service, and then quite literally also that I had to make my bed every day and wash the dishes 3 times a week. Mm-hmm. And if I'm being honest, I think my dad probably talked to the judge and had him throw in the make my bed every day situation or something.
Yeah, I guarantee he did. I've been trying to get this kid to make his bed. Here's my opportunity.
Exactly. You're not going to waste that opportunity.
Where did you do community service? I don't remember you doing community service.
Yeah. Well,
40 hours?
Because we weren't hanging out because I was at house arrest. Yeah, I was on house arrest. And so the short answer was stuff with the neighborhood and stuff with the church and other things that I could, that we had asked about, that I could go do, like going to pick up trash and, you know what I mean? Like, whatever, those types of things.
Was someone monitoring these hours?
Yeah. So I had a probation officer. So after I got sentenced, I had to go, I had, a probation officer that I had to go meet with on a regular basis, right? Go reestablish all these things. And it was one of those things of I'd go and show up, right? And you were supposed to like bring things of character of yourself and like all the, this type of stuff. So I actually I didn't know these existed either. Didn't remember that I've got a whole slew of letters from people in my life at that time. Like,
did I write one?
Like
Please
tell
me I wrote one.
No.
Yeah, you'd have been thrown in jail.
It was adults that I wanted to hear from. But my old teacher, Miss Stark, wrote one. Who's no longer with us. So it was cool. It was cool to see, some of that stuff. So, I remember when we met with the probation officer, and I had to do it on numerous occasions, but I remember meeting and her looking at me and going like, she literally looked through the stuff. Student council awards and and grades and all these things, whatever. And she looked through all the stuff and she looked at me and she said, "Why are you here?" Was literally what she said to me. And I was like,
Amen, sister.
Because I made a mistake and I did a stupid thing and I'm paying the price, right?
Yeah. What happened to the friend? What was his
same scenario?
Same thing.
So we were both and so the lawyer actually represented the both of us, and
Did you get 2 for 1 deal?
Same scenario. What? Yes, I guess.
Good. Gotta find those savings.
So as part of the sentencing, the judge told us that if we kept our records clean, that we would be able to have our records expunged before we graduated high school. I have it in one of the files, right? That he was quoted as saying that. And so the next, so like 91, 92.
And just so we're clear, that just means taking off your record.
Yes, clear. Yes.
Okay,
Expunge it is remove it off the record like it never happened, right? To expunge it is like it never happened.
Right.
And which was important. And of course we were trying to make sure it could happen. And the lawyer was pushing for, because don't let a thing that a kid did when he was 13, ruin the rest of his life. Right. Type scenario. And so like 91, 92 ended up being like working with the probation officer and getting all the ducks in a row associated with, all that kind of stuff. And then 1993 and 94 was like documenting the things that I was doing, right? So I had to keep the lawyer informed on happenings with me, right? Like, we did this in basketball and like captain of the team, whatever. All the things that help build the case. This is why I should have my record expunged, and then so 95 and 96 ended up being what I'll call round one for trying to get the record expunged. So we had the case, we scheduled, hearings and went in and things got canceled and delayed. And then it would be like literally like 6 months in between when we could reschedule again and, whatever, because for all sorts of reasons. And by the time we got there, the lawyer came back to us and said, the current prosecuting attorney is being a complete jerk and he's not budging on expunging the record. And his recommendation at the time was to just wait out until that individual was going to be gone and the next one was going to be in place, which was only a year from then. And so I went, okay. I mean, it was, what's another year? So, okay.
But did they give you a reason why?
Well, I don't remember
just
at that
he's
time.
A jerk. I mean,
no, I don't. Yes, 100% that took place. We had a competent
I bet he was
lawyer.
being a jerk for sure. I don't. But what reason was he giving?
Well, I'm getting to that. So the next prosecuting attorney came in. So we tried to go back, and this was 97 and 98, right? So that's round two, and we ran into the same scenario that prosecuting attorney said you cannot expunge 2 felony counts off someone's record. You can only expunge 1. And so expunging 1 off my record isn't going to do me any good. I still have 1 on there. And so that's completely useless. So at that time, the lawyer said, we've got 2 options.
But wait. You're 13.
Yes.
And I don't know the law, but isn't there something like when you're 18, it automatically, if you're a minor?
I'm getting to that. Can you stop jumping ahead?
Oh.
So the 2 options are we can either take the entire case back to court, start the entire process over again, have the lawyer plead it down to a single count and go through the process again, or I can wait and it stays on my record and it will automatically be expunged off my record when I turn 30 because I was a minor when it happened. 30 years old.
It's got to be 30?
Correct, because they're felonies. So it was 30 years old. It's not a misdemeanor. Misdemeanor was like a less age, probably like 18 or something along those lines, whatever.
Oh my
because it
Lord.
was felony, it was 30. And at that time, and I'd been going to court for 7 years, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to take my chances. I know at any point I can go take it back to court if I want to try and go down that path. I find out it's a problem for me in some way. I want to be done with this. I want to try and move on. And I decided to take my chances with keeping it on my record, see if it was going to be a problem. And now it was time to deal with the aftermath, which is Act 6, the after.
Okay, Act 6.
So, all right, I'm just gonna open with another quote. This
Sure.
one's by Teddy Roosevelt, right? Sure. That says, if you could kick the person in the pants responsible for most of your troubles, you wouldn't sit for a month. And that scenario played itself out for many years in many different situations. So I'm gonna go through, you know, some of the math, some of the aftermath. One, I thought it was very interesting. Where it showed the most was job applications, and job interviews, you know, in my life. Let me get some water.
Yeah, while you're getting water, I just want to thank my mom for grounding me. The one time I was grounded. The one time.
Okay, so now that this thing's on my record, right? The like kind of ancillarily, some of the things, some of the places where it showed up that I was always like, oh, was when I got pulled over, or when I went to a border crossing, right? Like going into Canada, right? That whole thing. So you got to give your ID.
Wow.
And it's not like when you're in that scenario, that situation, you go like, hey man, you see my boom boom mistake that I made, you know, or, you know, whatever, you know, when you're not going to strike up a conversation. I don't want to even ask. Right. And so you just wonder if that plays into that situation.
But do they ask you, are you a felon to get into Canada?
I don't know the answer to that, but when they swipe my ID though, I'm assuming my record's going to show, right? Yeah, I don't know. So no, I don't think I got ever asked if I was a felon when I cross. My thing is when they swipe or they look at the record associated with my ID. You know, of course. And look, I'm not law enforcement, but I'm pretty sure that 10 out of 10 times, it's better for you to not have any prior moving violations or tickets or felonies, convicted felonies. You know what I mean? Like just in general, as that's playing out. So there was always the extra nervousness associated with any of those scenarios, when play out. But the biggest place, and I started with this, but the biggest place it showed up that I didn't know was that every time that you fill out a job application on there's a little checkbox that says, check here if you've been convicted of a felony. And so I had to check that box every single time because legally, I think there is something as well that you can't pretend you weren't a felon, right? Yeah. You can't lie about being a felon, right? But it turned into this really interesting situation where I ended up having to address it every single time I went for a job interview. And talk about the nerves as is, right, for a job interview. Right. Now add this thing on top of it. And look, I tried to, keep it light, because my nerves were already at comical levels
every time.
I try to give it you use some kind of quote, you know what I mean? Like everything happens for a reason, but sometimes the reason is you're stupid and you made bad decisions. You know what I mean? Type thing. And
you didn't start with your Winston Churchill quote.
And after I found out that it was on job applications and I was going to have to deal with it, I tried to strategically, get into conversation first with the person I was meeting with before getting to the interview to have to fill that out and address it, start to build a little bit of a rapport before I get to that, or even bring it up, after we've built a rapport, go hey, by the way, there's something I'm gonna have to fill out that I don't want to tell you about or whatever. Every time, I would have to check it. I have to tell the story. It was 13, stupid mistake, It's on my record. You're going to see it when you do the background check, want to address it, And every time they would call, corporate, call HR, call whoever and be like, hey, just want to so the application, And every single time it was no, he was open and honest. You discussed it. He was 13. It's not we don't, if you're good with hiring him, then cool, you can hire him, So I was lucky enough that situations where I was able to go in for an interview and be able to talk to the people that it did not seem to present or prevent me from getting the job. But the other thing that plays into that that interview situation or scenario is actually, and I'm this is for Matt. I'm going to shout out to our buddy Pitbull, who turn the negative into a positive. So I would try to utilize that situation to show honesty and show, understanding responsibility and responsibility for one's actions and all those kinds of things. I would kind of talk through, but make sure I hammered home the lessons that I learned. And it was an opportunity for me to, express some key traits that a hiring manager would be interested in somebody that they're trying to bring in,
Yeah. And by the way, I would tell Pitt that you're a convicted felon just for street cred.
You did. You did. Thank you for
I
that.
know.
I screenshot when you texted me that because I was back home and you were working with him and there was a picture of the two of you together and you put on there like, by the way, Pitt asked me where you were. This was after Robo came apart, right? And we had done stuff with him, whatever. Pitt asked where you were. I didn't know what to tell him. So I told him you got arrested and you're back home, but you got arrested for a felony or some crap like that. But let's see. Okay, so yes, the job stuff, and then so I'm gonna call it round one of Miami, it being down in Miami, and this was after I went to school for audio and I moved down there and we were living together, and I had three scenarios where it came into play strong for me there. First one was getting denied credentials to work at the Super Bowl. So Dale and company, right, and Chris and folks, I don't know which one. That's where your brain's going. You'd have to go look.
Well, let me see what the three are because
cool. There might be one I'm not thinking of.
Well, but there was also pre-games. Okay.
So yes. So we can touch on that. Let me get through those. So I got denied credentials to go to the Super Bowl. Like they submitted for me and then
they
returned
at the Super Bowl.
To work. Yeah. Thank you. To work at the Super Bowl. Yes. To be part of the crew that was going to go in and work at the Super Bowl for audio and video and filming and, TV broadcasts, all that good stuff. So I got denied credentials to go to that. I got denied credentials to go to a premiere of a Michael Bay film that was premiering on an aircraft carrier that was down there. So also to go and film and record, which was 4th of July.
Was Pearl Harbor, right?
Pearl Harbor, that's the one.
Yeah, because I went to that one.
Yes.
That's where I met Cuba Gooding Jr., Jessica Simpson, a bunch of other people.
Cool. Rub it in.
Yeah, Jessica Simpson was super, super nice.
That's
like total Southern hospitality. You should have been there.
So glad you had that experience. I'm so glad.
Good experience, and my first and only time ever on an aircraft carrier.
So let's see. So I don't know what you wanted. So from a credential standpoint,
that's the aircraft carrier.
Yeah. So the other thing that took place was I was working on the Fast and Furious movie at the time. It was
Too Fast, Too Furious.
That's right.
Yeah.
Too Fast, Too Furious. So I got brought in. It was near the end of the production. I got brought in as a PA initially, and worked for like a couple of weeks doing PA stuff. And then they figured out that I was like really into cars and stuff, whatever. So then they kind of moved me over to like dealing with cars and whatever department that was in, and working with and moving and detailing and whatever the whole thing. And then which was all in the warehouse. And then they moved me over to the special effects crew. And then so and they
were like, this guy's got bomb experience.
They didn't know that at the time. And so, but the first day that I was there on the special effects crew, the one guy that was driving it, he turns to me and he goes, "Hey, we need you to go run up to the major gigantic pro shop. We need you to go run up to the pro shop and go buy 5 pounds of gunpowder." And I was like, because they were playing it, they had a scene that day with some jet skis and explosion, because everything explodes and, whatever. And they needed it to set that scene up for that day. And they were running out. And I was like, okay. And so I jump in the car and start driving and I start thinking about, I was like, oh man, I'm decently removed from the situation. So I don't think about it every day. But then I was like, oh boy. And I was like, well, I guess, if I can it's just on the shelf and I can just buy it and walk away with it, that's not a big deal. Okay. No problem. But I get to the pro shop and I'm looking through all the shelves. I'm looking whatever the whole thing. I can't find it anywhere. So then I gotta go up to the counter and I'm like, hey, so I'm with the special effects crew for the film, and they all of course knew they were in town and it was being shot or whatever. And like, oh yeah. And I was like, they sent me to pick up 5 pounds of gunpowder. Is it out here? Can you show me where it's at? Wherever. He goes, oh no. It's back here. It's I'll just grab it for you and bring it out. I was like, okay, cool. So
he brings it out and he sets it down, and then there's a piece of paper that's there, and he goes, but I'm going to need you to fill this out, because anything over 1 pound, you have to fill out this paperwork. And sure enough, there's a, have you ever been convicted of a felony? Or there was even like, have you ever been convicted of a crime involving explosives or any of that kind of stuff, whatever. And I was like, yes. And I was like, I'm looking at this. And so in my head, I'm going, well, I can't not show back. I'm going to lose my job if I go turn around and go back. And that was my only job at the time. I was freelancing, and that was like my income or whatever. I was like, so I guess I'm going to fill this out and see what happens. So I fill it out like with my information and be totally open and honest about the situation. And the dude comes back from behind, the whatever he was in the bag, comes back to the counter. And I was like, so I need to talk to you about this. And he's like, oh, all right, what's going on? And I explained the whole situation. He's like, well, this is a first for me. Let me go call corporate, right? So he turns around and calls.
Corporate's real tolerant to that stuff.
So here's the thing. So the corporate turns around and goes and says, if he filled it out accurately and and he filled it out truthfully, then it's fine. Sell it to him.
Oh, good.
Because but now
they're more about the dollars than
now they've got on record who bought it. So if there was a problem down the line that I could be questioned, right? Or they would know, to how to find some of them may have been, associated with it. But it was another one of those like panic moments where I was like, oh man, this is coming back to kill me. And one of the worst scenarios that it showed up for me, one of the most nerve-wracking of all of the scenarios, was after my now wife, Carrie, and I started dating. And I knew really early on that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. And
she made you fill out paperwork?
I was like, we need to talk about this. We were just out. I knew I needed to let her know about it, because it's there and it could pop up in some weird situation, like a border crossing or whatever, and I was nervous because I didn't want it to screw up this thing that I knew I wanted to be lifelong. And so one night we were out on a date, and at the end of the date, she was living with her parents at the time, and we just parked the car, and I was like, I need to tell you something, and I don't know how it's going to go. And she of course then got nervous about it. And I said,
it's a weird way to start.
Of course, I'm not saying it was good. But I told her, I said, I literally said, technically I'm a felon, but let me explain. That's what I said to her, and then proceeded to tell the whole, the whole thing. And
did you lock the doors when you said it?
So I went through the whole thing, and she was fine with it. And we kind of like, she had expressed, she's like, you were 13. If you were 22 when it happened, I would be a lot more concerned, about whatever the whole thing. And she's like, I got really nervous and scared. Like, you were going to tell me something like you were married, or like you killed Nana, or like, something crazy, that goes along with that. But, so anyway, that all worked out. We're married. Yay. Congratulations. She didn't freak out. So after I turned 30, then I did some online background checks on myself, where I just paid the $20 and like went through the thing and didn't get anything back.
Congratulations. I
know. So like, I'm reformed, I'm free, and now it's just a bad decision in a good story. As a side note, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I know. I was like, this is kind of a random little side note, but you probably don't remember the movie Butterfly Effect with
I remember
Ashton.
it.
So
I remember it. I wish I didn't.
Do you remember? Oh, good movie with the ending that
not.
With the cut ending that I'm not going to give any details with it, but the cut ending that they replaced with the Hollywood ending, with that in place, good movie, loved it. However, I couldn't watch that movie. That movie hit hard because I don't know if you remember, there's a literal scene with explosions in a mailbox that the kids, like the friends, did a thing, and the one kid walked out and it blew up when the kid went out. And so they kept trying to go back and fix that situation. Man, I watched that and it was like PTSD for me to watch the scenario and like how things played out. It hit hard. But there are times that I know because that happened to me, it kept me clear of some other bad situations. Like, and of course, everything is speculative, and whatever. But I have a set of final takeaways associated with the whole thing.
Okay.
Extra interestingly to me,
all right, these are the takeaways.
So psychologically, just revisiting the whole thing really refreshed and brought up some things that honestly had sort of fallen away, right? Like not having dealt with it for so long, but it brought back a lot of things for what is obviously a huge defining moment, right? For me in many ways. So what are those takeaways, right? Okay. So we had 6 acts. I got 6 takeaways for you. Okay. 1 is don't take homemade explosive devices from the sketchy kid at school. Even if they are a great thespian and you've got a grudge to settle with a perfect mark. I listen, it's
they're your takeaways, so go ahead. I'm rolling it. I'm rolling with it.
Are you? Because you're gonna show you to give it with your
I'm not gonna. I'm gonna. I'm probably gonna replay it twice.
Okay, so number 2, when it comes to the law, even though it may not seem fair, you have to work with the system. Right or wrong, whether you agree with it or not, got to play their game. Okay. Number 3, which was, I know I didn't touch on this, but it played out in there. And then in adulthood, looking back on it, it's that don't be a victim. So you choose to be a victim or take responsibility for what you did. And yeah, the system sucked, but my actions are what put me there and put me in that position and have to deal with that, that situation. And all the bad stemmed from my own actions. And you've got to own that and be able to move on.
Very mature of you.
Yeah, it is definitely more of the adult looking back, idea and that reminder that that's true. Number 4, don't lie. so you haven't thought through everything, and it's way less complicated to tell the truth, and dealing with the truth can be way easier than dealing with the lie. Like, this is a perfect example. It's absolutely true. 5, at showing up as a parent, especially in critical times, like a single moment can literally have like lifelong effects on a situation. And, and that understanding of doing a bad thing does not make you a bad person or a bad kid, that changed my mindset, instantly, right? In that. So especially as a parent now, like reflecting back on that and trying to have some awareness, right? And be able to think about those kinds of things to be able to head some of that stuff off. And then lastly, I think I've touched on multiple times that's the thing that most defines me out of the situation, and who I am as a person, is that I alone and you alone, right? The collective you are responsible for your actions, and you're responsible for them, and your actions have consequences. So with my hoarse voice, sometimes a bad decision leads to a life lesson that makes for a great defined podcast.
And my takeaway is, if you say you're going to ground your kid. You don't know what the positives of that are.
Yeah, they earned that for a reason. You have no idea what you're saving them from.
No idea how different my life would be.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, of course my voice is hoarse. This is more talking than I've done in 18 episodes of this podcast.
That is certainly true. If you made it this far, let us know.
If you have any takeaways, if you have any defined moments, you have some situations, there are people that watch this are absolutely going to watch or listen to it that absolutely know the situation, have their own, situation. Feel free to throw those in the comments.
But not even throw them on. Hit us up. Maybe we have you on the podcast. Like, because I like hearing stories like this where people learn something and it's got this kind of ebb and flows. Oh, we can do an ebb and flow. But I like those. So hit us up if you have a good story, and then we'll vet it and see if we can bring it on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you know anyone in the story, again, please don't say any names.
Yeah. Whatever.
All right. Well, I got to get going because this was 3 hours.
Okay. Was that me? Are we done? Is that it?